Welcome to the Body Wise podcast. I'm Beth Manning, and this is a space where I invite you to totally be you, to bring your sensitivities, your empathic gifts, and to just rest here for a moment and sink into your amazingness. Sink into this beautiful community of people that are coming together, that are sensitive, that are helpers, that have a gift to share with the world, where maybe that feels a little hard, or it might feel like things are working against you at times. And my aim for this podcast is to really help you to see your power, to see your wisdom, and to celebrate that. So I've been a healer for over a decade. I mean, I was born a healer, right? Like, if you're a healer, you're born with the soul of a healer. Sometimes it just takes us a little bit of time to actually step into the role of a healer. And when I say that, you might not be working in a helping profession. You might be the mom who is helping everyone at home, or the friend who everybody comes to for advice, or, says, "You're so wise. And, do you have a minute? I have something that I want to run past you." Or, "Talking to you just makes me feel so much better. Thank you for your presence." These are all ways that our soul is expressing itself. This is that energy that we're leading in. I've been helping a lot of intuitive women lately, a lot of people who are coming to me who are very sensitive, who, the energy this year has been a little crazy. I don't know if you've noticed, you probably noticed, but I think we're all noticing, right? Even if people who say they're not sensitive to energy are noticing, there's huge shifts happening this year. There's this energy of ascension and change and upgrades, and people are getting sick more, people are getting run down or feeling overwhelmed or exhausted and just drained. And that can be an effect of being in this energy. But I want to talk about something else that can cause that. So I've been seeing a lot of people coming to me lately, just feeling like they don't understand why they're so tired. They're feeling so drained. Maybe they're starting to feel like a little bit resentful for all the things they have to do in their life, or all the people that are relying on them for answers. Maybe they're having trouble really holding boundaries, or even understanding how to set boundaries right now. And when we break our boundaries, often, or if we're in need of boundaries, often our body will be the first to tell us through symptoms, exhaustion, or just feeling really heavy and really off, despite even getting a really good night's sleep. So these are things to kind of be aware of as red flags of your body saying, okay, something needs to be looked at a little bit closer here. And I want to help you today with something that I've been seeing in people who tend to be more sensitive, more empathic, or working in the helping profession also, is this feeling of giving and maybe over giving, or not knowing where the boundary for helping people is. So it's sort of like when being helpful starts to feel draining. And we don't always connect these two things, which is really interesting, right? It's like, I think if you're a helpful person, right? Like if you have that healing energy, naturally, that energy that people gravitate toward, it can be difficult to see the correlation between like I'm overgiving or I'm overgiving of myself or being too helpful. And that is causing me to have these physical symptoms or to feel resentful or to feel drained. Because I know I've always just felt like I've been really helpful. And, I don't know a time when I haven't felt the need to be helping other people. But I want to help you do that in a healthier way. Because sometimes oftentimes what I see with the helpers and the healers is that it's very hard to delineate where the line between healthy is and unhealthy, right? Where it starts to become more of a burden or a drain on you. So this might be something that you've never even thought of before, right? Like I remember when I started working as a psychic, as when my abilities started to open up, and I was like, holy crap, this is so cool. Like, I just want to do it for everybody. I was like, I want to channel on that, or like your body hurts. I want to figure out what's going on, and it wasn't always the people were like into it, it was like me wanting to do it. And like I just, I felt this gift and I wanted to give it to everybody because it just felt so cool and so exciting. And, I think sometimes when we're like the person people go to for advice too, it can feel like a little bit of an ego, trip of this is amazing, like there must be something to this. Like I have some kind of magical gift or power. And I remember that when I was sort of everybody's psychic at first, I started to feel really tired. I started to feel really drained and my body started to break down. I started to get sick more often. I started to just have like a lot of heaviness. I found that I was taking on people's problems. This was before I learned anything about how to set up energetic boundaries, like how to clear myself properly. It was really, kind of flying blind in a way. And I learned very quickly that, okay, I have to set up some parameters around this. Like sometimes we want to be helpful because it gives us that little rush, that little rush of like, I'm important, I'm needed, people need me. But the problem with that is that can set us down this sort of slippery slope for our own troubles, our own sickness, our own inability to sustain the work that we want to be doing or the way that we want to be able to show up for our family or our loved ones. So it can be very time limited if we start working in a way that is not sustainable because we don't really have the ability to set boundaries around it yet. Okay, so if this is you, just hang on. We're going to talk a little bit about this. And first of all, it's okay because I don't want you to beat yourself up if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm just letting people take advantage of me or whatever, because like we're not really taught this stuff. We're not taught this, especially if you've never had formal training, in energy work or healing or psychic abilities or skills development or any of that. How are you supposed to know? So many of us are born just kind of watching others maybe doing this and not having boundaries or kind of getting taken advantage of. But it's so important to first have some boundaries and to second, to understand the motivation underneath why we're helping people. And this is a big one. And this really invites you to get honest with yourself. And this might be really uncomfortable but I want you to do it anyway. I want you to trust me and to do it anyway, because it's going to be very valuable to you. So when we do our work, when we have our gifts, it's often something that, started in childhood, of like, you're so helpful. Thank you for being so helpful. You need to take care of your little brother. You're in charge of him. Make sure that he's okay. Maybe you were the wise one that everybody came to, and it just felt so good every time they said, thank you. You really helped me solve that problem, or I wouldn't have seen that for myself. Right? So I want you to start thinking about what the motivation is underneath that need to be helpful. So a lot of times the motivation is like kind of that ego trip, right? That ego, like, you're so good at this. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm good at. This is what I do. Like when I was growing up, I wasn't that great in school. It was okay, but I had to work really hard. But I had wisdom for days. People would come to me for advice, and it felt so natural. It felt so good. That was the equivalent of me getting an A on a paper, right? But it became draining over time. So I want you to really think about that. Like, what is the motivation behind being helpful? And it might change person to person, right? If somebody in your family comes to you for help or for healing, if you get really honest with yourself, you might think, well, oh, they can't do this without me. Or, I feel so sorry for them. They've been through so much. This is the least that I can do. Right? Or there's this kind of need to fix. I love somebody, so I want to fix them. I want to help them. I know how to make them feel better, so I'm going to step in and do it. But I want you to picture the energetics of this. Okay? So when we're leading from that, I feel sorry for this person energy, or I want to fix this person, or, they're going to give me so much praise if I jump in there and I help to take away their pain or their suffering. Okay. So that energy, if we're picturing that we have a line in the sand that stands between me and the person that I'm working with, right? The person who has this request for healing. And that's the other thing, real quick, is that the person needs to have a request for healing. I think so often we're like, well, I I know what's going on, or I can see clearly like what you need in order to heal. And the person's like, okay, like, I guess, like, that starts us off on this really shaky, tentative energy. So I want you to picture that, right? We've got this line in the sand, and if the person is kind of lukewarm about it, we're jumping over that line and we're in their side now, right? So the energy is uneven. If you're picturing this like the scales, okay? Ideally, that needs to be even. We need to have consent from the person, and we need to enter into the agreement cleanly. And by cleanly, I mean that I don't have an ulterior motive, right? That I'm not trying to fix. I'm not trying to prove my worth. I'm not, I'm not needing to have that ego stroked, okay? I'm not doing it because I don't believe they can do it themselves, okay? There are all these things that we bring into this. Okay, maybe you are a healer and like you feel like, okay, this person paid me, so now I have to provide this much value, or I have to like maybe overgive of my services or overgive of my time to show them that it was worth their investment. So whenever we do that, I want you to picture that energetic exchange. You're no longer on your side of the line. You're jumping over into theirs. Okay? And it's not going to be equal, because this is energetically what happens when you jump over the line between your energy and into their energy intensely. Okay? So whenever there's that, I need to fix, I need to help, I need to prove myself, I need to prove my worth, what we're actually doing in that situation is you're taking away their power. So you're over in their space and you're saying, okay, let me, like you're kind of hoisting all this energy onto them. And what you're doing is you're saying, without saying, like, I don't believe that you can do this on your own. Okay. And that's the first belief, that whenever we're helping someone, it's so important for us to be able to see the person can do this on their own, and to have the belief in their strength, in their ability to heal without needing us. Right? We're just a guide. We're just helping them to tap into their power. We're just helping them to see their truth, to uncover it for themselves, to uncover their own wisdom. The minute we start thinking that we have to prove something, or that they are not strong enough to do it themselves, we actually make them not strong enough to do it themselves, because we're starting to take their power. So if we're taking their power, we're not only holding their power. If you can picture, we're like loading up our shoulders right now with stuff. So if your shoulders hurt, good place to start looking. Okay, so we're taking that upon ourselves. We're taking their power, and then we're also holding their responsibility, like this. So suddenly we're like, I'll hold everything for you. And then we wonder why our body hurts. We wonder why we can't sleep. We wonder why our digestion sucks. We wonder why we sleep 10 hours and we still feel exhausted. We still feel heavy. If you're working physically hands-on, maybe your hands hurt, right? These are all signs that we have a power imbalance going on with our clients, with our friends, with our family, with who we're helping. So it's so important to set things up cleanly, because that's when working with energy, that's when being a healer, that's when it really starts to cook and take off and have a profound effect on someone, is when we enter into this scenario where we're both in our power, and where we thoroughly believe in the other person's ability to heal, where we believe in their ability to stand in their power. We trust their body is so intelligent, right? So we're leading into this in abundance, not a lack mindset. And that's so important, not only for the outcome of the session or, of the interaction with the person, but also for our own health and for our own longevity as helpers, as healers, as the wise listeners, right? We don't want to be taking on their energy, but it can happen in such a small, sneaky way that we don't realize it until we're so far down the hole, until we've got the body pain, until we're out of work, until, we're so anxious, we don't understand why. And then we have to work our way back and do a lot of healing ourselves. So I would love for you to let this sink in, settle in, and go into it with curiosity. This curiosity of like, what is driving my desire to help this person or to help with this healing? Because it doesn't mean that you're not necessarily able to help them. It might just mean that you have to do a little bit of healing, a little bit of clearing on yourself first to get neutral. That's really all it means. And you're going to feel better as the result. So if you would like help with this, if you would like help setting energetic boundaries, if you know that you are healing people from a place of feeling like, it is an ego stroke, or feeling like, well, I've always been the one that's had to help everybody, right? If you have these old patterns, these stories, these beliefs, we can do some energetic clearing around that. You might even have a past life that is causing some of this. I've been releasing a lot of past life energy lately. This is a big time to do that, so that you can go into this work or, open up these gifts without feeling like it's a burden, without feeling the responsibility and having to shoulder it all on your body. So I have a 6 or a 12-week private healing immersion where we dive into all of this. It's really specified to what you need right now to start feeling better, to start shifting your energy, feeling confident, trusting yourself, feeling connected to your body, to your soul, learning how to lead from that energy. And, if you're ready, you're working with your gifts and working as a healer too, and the things that are coming up around that, so we can clear it so you can become so much more powerful. So if you are interested in a healing immersion, please reach out to me. These are all inclusive. So we meet once a week on Zoom, and then you have Voxer access to me in the time in between. So that means if you wake up in the morning and you just feel like off, or you have a question, or something pops into your mind that you want to share or get clarity on, you can hop on, leave me a voice message or a text, and I'm going to get back to you, and we're going to have a conversation. So you don't have to wait a week in between sessions in order to get clarity, get an answer, move ahead. We can go so deep, so fast. That's why these healing immersions are quick. They're quick shifts, because we're able to do so much in so little time with the energy work, with the Voxer. Also, I create meditations or healings just for you so that you can stay in that energy in between sessions. So these are real game changers, right? Healing does not have to take forever. It doesn't have to be unbearable. You don't have to go back into the past. Like, we're not going to drag back into the past and rehash it all. That is not necessary for healing. That is not necessary. And so much about healing has been changing in this energy lately. So we've been stepping into new levels of power with this. And I use my grid light healing. It's my own modality to help really shift and change this energy, your beliefs, neural pathways, really working with the nervous system. So it's a way of healing so much more completely, so much quicker. And I hope that you'll join me if it speaks to you. So please reach out. You can send me an email or a message on Instagram or Facebook, and I would love to chat with you. So thank you so much for listening today. If this resonates with you, please share it with a friend. Also, I would love for you to follow me, give it a rating, like this. That just helps more people to discover this. And if you're listening to this, you can also catch it on YouTube. So I hope to see you there. And thank you so much. And I will catch you next time on the Body Wise podcast.